Dear friends, thank you for coming this afternoon on Saturday. This is the opening of the two-day event of the project, which is called Nationless, which is a project that aims to bridge activism, art and theory in looking forward to innovative ways of tackling and combating recurring nationalisms in the Balkans. In our first meeting, where we actually had to sit down and eat a pide and drink some tea, chai, Turski chai, in Churchill with Prota and Fotini and Danis, and Yaki, who is unfortunately not here with us today, we were thinking of how we go forward about the project, about planning it, and how would we contribute the best to the idea of inventing ways of combating nationalism. Later on we have opening of the exhibition at 8 o'clock, but now we thought of having some semi-workshops, semi-discussions and presentations and talks which would sort of explore different various ideas, because we didn't want to have a conclusion of our project. We sort of talked through it, and I spent some time thinking through it, and I thought that we didn't really want to have a systemized way of targeting an issue. And when nationalism is an issue, it has its own system. So we thought that if we go by reproducing this sort of status of knowledge or way or path of getting a new knowledge of how to combat nationalism, we will basically do a favor to a mode of reproduction of knowledge. And actually maybe we wanted to have this spread of ideas which would be exchanged and discussed, which would function a little bit like this Platonic chora, this unorganized material where you have a lot of things and then you can use this and that and reorganize it and reshape it and then use it for one or another purpose. So the main idea of this 2 days event here in Skopje, which will continue in Belgrade and then in Thessaloniki and then close up in Skopje again, is to present different theories, ideas, experiences, practice from before. So the first event has to do more with presenting what has been done, and that's why it's called, the exhibition is called Nationless, a continuous struggle and a collection of struggles that have been going on through the years in the region, of artists that have taken on nationalism in different ways. Another approach that we wanted to explore is that most of the artworks and most of the talks are not related directly, some of them are not related directly to nationalism, because we wanted to see also some methods, a process, a gesture, which is interesting and which doesn't deal necessarily with nationalism directly, but which can be combined with the content of anti-nationalist idea, or beyond, let's say, nationalist idea, and then we can use these tools to further our anti-nationalist goal. So just to give you a brief example, where are we today, also for the guests from abroad. We are in the cradle of civilization. This is the message that most of the foreign tourists, when they come to Macedonia, receive. It is welcome to Macedonia, to the cradle of civilization. So basically this is one way how this sort of nationalism has become mainstream and has become one of the ordinary ways of visiting Macedonia, that you receive this sort of message when you enter our country. And I think it speaks a lot about the context in which we are having our event. It speaks a lot of maybe how much defeated some of us are, that we have suffered a defeat, that this sort of message has entered into also a phone company, which is international, basically it's T-Mobile, which also mainstreamizes this sort of nationalism and it reproduces the story. From the responses that I got from most of the people who came in this event, most of the responses were fun. Like, we received this funny message, the cardinal civilization. And then when I lived in Netherlands a few years ago, people were there, you meet people around, and they ask you, where are you from? And I said, Macedonia. Sometimes they said, McDonald's? And then I said, no, Macedonia. And it's where all this civilization story started, like the whole world started there. So basically it also has an international effect. People tend to identify you with the propaganda that your state does through, in this case, CNN. If you watch news on CNN, then you have these commercials about Macedonia as the cradle of civilization. We will have today, at this session, because there is another one like this tomorrow, at 1 o'clock, it will be also as interesting as today. Tomorrow it's me, Fotini, from Greece, Slobodan from Serbia, Olson from Albania, and Angeliki also from Greece. It's a mixture of artists, activists, theorists. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock we will have Visar Arife from Partija 4, the strong party. This is the particular example of a method that we wanted to explore of how certain activist/artist initiatives can combat mainstreaming of, in the case of Kosovo, this established way of parties. And then we will have also Jordanis, we will have a collective course from Jordanis from Greece, we will have a collective course from Serbia, and also Artis Gavrilidis from Greece, who is based at the moment in Brussels. I guess the form that we said, it will be quite heretic to the form, to the established sort of way of handling and doing things. So we will have maybe sometimes some talks, which will be more theoretical, some presentation which will be more abstract, and some other examples which will be more practical and concrete. So out of this whole mixture, I think that we will come up with this sort of contestation of the very mode of generating of knowledge at first hand. At second hand, we will see how different experiences of anti-nationalism or combating nationalist tendencies in different contexts are lived by the people who are engaged or involved in this, let's say, struggle. I would briefly say, and then let's see. I will briefly say about my part of involvement in the sort of anti-nationalist struggle it is more or less concentrated within the activist organization which I'm a member of, and that is the leftist movement Solidarity, where we tend to sort of devise a strategy of political action which is beyond ethnic, which will try to address a majority of people, which will try through its rhetoric to create a different majority, because the majorities which we live in Macedonia are ethnic majorities. I always used to say, if you have certain anthropological political glasses and you are flying with a helicopter above Macedonia, the first social political structures that you see will be the ethnic structures. You don't see the mountains if you have these glasses. You see the ethnic structures. And ethnic structures generally in the country, and then ethnic structures in the cities, and then ethnic structures in the neighborhoods. So our aim is to address certain issues which are common to all ethnic groups in the country. And basically we had this talk and idea within the anti-nationalist group, the organization, and we said we will not call ourselves a multi-ethnic political organization, because it means that the differences are kept somehow together and there is a multi-thing. We will call ourselves a beyond ethnic political organization, which tries to put forward some questions and issues which are not relating to certain ethnic identity, but which build a commonality which can be politically organized and which can be moved forward through political activism. So we have had an interesting experience, not directly as an organization, but the people from the organization. We wrote a book with Greek anarchists from Thessaloniki, a book. It was called the initiative IDA, because it's the same word which is used in Macedonian, Albanian, Greek language, Turkish language. It's actually from Turkish language,
Yeah.
right?
IDA.
IDA. So the initiative was called IDA, and it was anti-nationalist historiography of Macedonia and Greece, and it was supposed to be, it's online. If you search by IDA publication, you will find it, you can download the book. It's a historiographic anti-nationalist initiative, which was sort of initiated by our Greek comrades in Thessaloniki, and which was meant to be used as a tool to counter the sort of Greek enthusiasm, which would be very nationalistic, on the 100 years of the liberation of Thessaloniki. So this was the idea behind starting all this project. And then there were book promotions in Florina, in Skopje, in different cities in Macedonia and in Greece. And then through the process, I sort of started to realize that there are dangers, which we sort of, that's why we devised this project also, to try to think of innovative ways how to evade these dangers. One of the dangers would be that Macedonians and Greeks, in this case, would read the same book, and they would read the part of, in Macedonia, they would read the part of the Greek anti-nationalist historic narrative. And they would say, you see, the Greeks are admitting they are the nationalists. And these other guys who have written this anti-nationalist Macedonian text, they are the traitors. So even if you have this common, it was printed in one book, even if you have this common solidarity against nationalism, it can be perverted in different ways. One of the approaches that with the leftist movement solidarity we have had is that our members, because it is a sensitive issue, our members who are Macedonians, they would counter Macedonian ethnic nationalism, and then Albanians would do this. But then the risk would be that by one ethnic community, these others who are targeting their nationalisms would be celebrated as heroes, as those who testify of the wrongdoings of the other ethnic groups. And then the ones who criticize their own nationalism would be termed as traitors. And then this would be a good toolbox to handle this criticism, which should work otherwise. So in order to avoid this trap, and to avoid entering into reproduction of nationalism, we thought of this project as a hierarchical process which will provide different examples and which will open up questions. The aim of this project and discussions and the exhibition and the tomorrow's discussion and field projections is to open questions. It's not to give answers. The aim is not to bring about conclusions, because bringing conclusions, I consider that will just dogmatize the path of activism, the path of art creation, the path of theory, generating theoretical knowledge, which somehow would lose the sense with the real world in which it is produced and generated, which poses such challenges as these that I spoke about, this common initiative either. I will not take much more time. I will give the word to Fotini, Tsibiridou, who is a professor of anthropology at the Macedonia University of Thessaloniki in Greece, which previously was called Aristoteles.
No, actually it's the second university in the town. It's a small university. It was a school of, how was it done in your school?
Economical theory.
Economical, school of economics before. And after
it was renamed.
University. Renamed in 91, I think, as University of Macedonia, as our airport also was renamed.
Our airport was renamed into Alexandria.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So
everybody took something from the same culture, let's say. Yes.
It's exactly this pattern of renaming the places and identifying with certain points in history. It's interesting also after the 90s.
Yes.
Because last week we had this, with the Institute, a series of political workshops that we organized. We had Alikos Alavanos, who was one of the founders of Synaspismos and the ex-president of Syriza. And we were exchanging on this hysteria after the 90s. He said before the 90s, Alexander was not an issue in Greece. He was not a first-rank hero. We had like writers like Homer, I don't know, Euripides.
More ancient heroes than Alexander the Great.
Yes, we had writers and philosophers, first Plato and Aristotle as first-rank heroes. And then now, but because he comes from Athens, he says in the northern part of Greece, Alexander became, since the 90s, he became a sort of a first-rank hero. Before this, it was not. And actually, we are lagging a little bit behind because in the 90s it was not as well. Now it's Alexandros Megalos, who is becoming the sort of main figure, also visually in the city. And this pattern of sort of mutual competition poses in front of us a lot of questions for action, which we are here to talk and discuss about. So,
okay. I'm so glad to be with you and share with Artan and the others the same. What is it? No, it's okay. Yeah, okay. Yes. Okay. I'm so glad to share with you some of my ideas and my previous work. So, just a sentence about me. I'm a social anthropologist who was born in Komotini, a multicultural so-called area where official Christian majorities and Muslim minorities share together at the same town and because we have the officially recognized Muslim minority in Greece. And so that was, for me, the first source of, let's say, a challenge to do anthropology later. Because I would love to reconciliate with my past, with my childhood, where I had to be with the others, so full of otherness, full of exclusions, etc., etc. So I was very attracted by the idea of doing studies regarding minorities. And why minorities? Because of this condition. At the same time, I was born in a family where my grandmother, my grandparents from both sides, were refugees. Refugees, people who came from Eastern Thrace, actually is Turkey, and my grandmother was coming from Ayvalık also, but anyway, people who had to leave their home country, Patrida, and come to a new country. And of course, my grandmother never named Greece as a Patrida. Always, when she was talking about Patrida, she meant, of course, home country in Turkey. So these two conditions were at the basis of all my anthropological concern, let's say. And that's why I started a PhD with these same refugee people coming from Eastern Thrace. And but at that time, I didn't realize why I was so interested in that. And of course, it was an agony for me to speak about their trauma, because it was a fully traumatical experience for them to learn to be national subject in Greece, and at the same time adapt themselves to the new reality in a new village with a lot of problems, etc., etc. So I followed their lives, and of course I realized how broken were their lives, and I would really like to know more about family histories and about all this. So I think my first PhD study with these refugee people, and later in all my career I never stopped to do fieldwork with, starting by Pomats, a Slav-speaking minority, Muslim minority in Greece. For 10 years I did fieldwork on Pomat villages. Later Muslim minorities within my hometown, Komotini. And so these two subjects were very important, and I was wondering why. So in my view, that was because something in the construction of nationalism was very bad. I was feeling not very comfortable with nationalistic discourse, and I think because those subjects, the refugee subject on one hand and the minority subject on the other, were impossible to be included in the Greek nationalism. So I started a very hard critique on nationalism, of course, but through my studies. So that's why I'm giving you this information. And of course, in my work, in my anthropological work, I do, I use as tools the cultural critique. And of course in this project, and not only in this project, because of my activist also concern in Thessaloniki, with IKIS we share the same social workshop experience, and I'm interested in the cultural public policies unmaking and remaking national culture and citizenship experiences. So I think that through these examples I just mentioned, through the refugee trauma and minority shame, be able to work on the issue of Nationless, of this project, how to find and which technologies to lead ourselves to a critical understanding. And so I think that social poetics, embodied habitus, and reflective and not restorative nostalgia can be the ways to comment on nationalism and its impact upon citizenship. So I would love to find through this transindividual experience with the artists, find new ways to mobilize feelings, passions, and share experiences that go beyond the modern national abstract fantasies and fanatical belonging of nationalism. And so my hypothesis is that if we manage to find how to promote everyday experiences of sharing goods, commodities, memories, intimate feelings, and expectation, it's wrong here. We can challenge all the previous fantasies of segregation, inequalities, discrimination, hate practices coming from because of the master narrative and habitus of nationalism. So the refugee trauma and the minority shame could be, for me, a key categories to shape upon this deconstruction of nationalism. And of course, my aim is to get to go to a creative understanding through all these experiences, and of course invest a lot on reflective nostalgia. I will explain how later. So I said all this, it's not necessary to stop here. So I use the concept, the category of minority, not minority per se, but minority say, because I want to make the difference between the category of minority or the category of refugee as metaphysics of the political Western modernity, because we need to challenge these analytical categories. Both, if we don't see both categories in the framework of becoming, we risk to essentialize them. And of course, we saw all this during the 80s and especially after the 90s in human rights and multiculturalism policies promoted by the European Union, and not only, and as global policies. And so, after this experience we had from those policies, we understood that following these policies, we have more exclusion than inclusions. We have more otherness than diversity, and more hegemonies than equalities. So, this is why I took my distances from those categories of minority and refugee in the modern, let's say, essentialized way. But if I think we take the example of minority or the refugee in the frame of becoming, first of all, we can include all kind of minorities, old ones and new ones. For instance, the historical ethnic minorities, some historical ethnic minorities, but also the new migrants can be included in this minority shame concept or refugee status. And what else? Of course, I think that as indigenous anthropologists, I found that I can put myself in an experimental way of understanding more than others that they didn't pass through this experience of shame, because I was shamed about my compatriots in Fotini, because I was ashamed about them to see them to be discriminated by the majority, etc., etc. Anyway, it's an open issue for discussion. And of course, another experience I had through my studies, anthropological studies, is that I tried to collaborate with directors in order to produce documentaries. So it was a very difficult collaboration at first, but at the end I was more rich through this experience because we had to change places. I became a director, that he became anthropologist, so we exchanged ideas, and I have a very interesting text about this collaboration we had on a documentary about the Pomaks regarding the marriage. And so it's a study under publication, but I think I need to develop more on this. So I don't escape. Of course, I don't have time. It is the study I'm talking about, and I'm coming to this synpraxis of art and social sciences for the issue of reflective nostalgia on refugee trauma versus restorative national narratives. Here I borrow the term restorative, not restorative, but reflexive nostalgia by Svetlana Bon, who wrote about this. Okay, and of course I do the distinction, and she is doing the distinction, and I totally agree with her, because restorative, the first, means a return to the roots, nationalism, fundamentalism, conspiracy theories. The other, the reflexive, helps to the reconstruction of the subject in the way, for instance, Marcel Proust meant it, à la recherche du temps perdu, in the research of the lost time, yeah, where by biting the Madeleine, Marcel Proust, he is remembering the past and its relevant meaning to the present. So this is a very good way to reconstruct the time the subject needs after have been passed through a traumatical experience. Reflective nostalgia is not only challenging nationalism and its myth of unification, but can also cure from the trauma and the unsaid negative experiences of displacement, and remain open and sensitive to new experiences of diversity for the building of citizenship. How much time I have? It's already done? Okay. So, these are the two ideas I would love to share with you. And of course, I can give you more details, how we can proceed to the promotion of reflective nostalgia, how we can take distances from national museums narratives and build small museums talking about everyday practices and reality in the frame of the neighborhood, in the frame of the city, etc., etc. So go beyond the official grand narrative of nationalism in every nation. Anyway, for this I use a lot the combination, combining anthropological analysis with cinema narratives, and so two films for me were an excellent example to compare with. One is from Turkey, from a Turkish director, Dedemin Salari, talking about the traumatical experience of Muslims who came from Crete to Turkey, and the other is about politiki or politiki cousina, Greeks who had to live in the after the 60s Istanbul and come to Greece. So both they had to become new national subject and had to feel shy, to feel ashamed, because they didn't accomplish all the characteristics, the standards of national standards, etc. So, but the film talks about, the two films talks about these experience. So we have to follow this path in order to understand and make our studies also, our analysis more attractive to the audiences, etc., etc. So, social poetics and gifted characters, as I found in my research, and the three discussants who motivate me to follow another path as the cinema, this example. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Fotini. I think it was an interesting, let's say, outburst of interesting ideas, which have a take on nationalism for sure. And to me personally, it was quite challenging the categories of and difference within the categories that we studied between restorative and reflexive nostalgia. I think this is very interesting, and also the social poetics. Interesting topics that you raised, which we might discuss later, as I said, which were, let's say, open source ground for further contestations. But now I would move forward to Slobodan Karamanic, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but he would speak more on and present on the Yugoslav experience.
Yes.
And you asked me to have 30 minutes, and I said it's too much.
But now
I hope you have compressed it into less, so that we can have some more time to discuss.
just for beginning to correct Artan for small details. Not coming from Serbia, I'm coming from Munich at the moment, where I'm living already for 10 years. it's true that I have at the moment Serbian passport, which is the story of itself. It's called, the country is called Republic of Serbia, but it has the double-headed eagles and the crown, which is also a specific phenomenon of the case that Artan was mentioning, which is unavoidable, of course, with this message, entering, welcoming message to Macedonia, the cradle of civilization. I think that we should first of all think what stands for this civilization. And why there is such an excessive desire to actually to belong to such a civilization. I'm basically coming from a Yugoslav Marxist tradition, and for years this has been the interest of mine to detect certain moments that has been created in the course of historical course of creation of second socialist Yugoslavia during the people's liberation struggle, partisan struggle, and the way to actually combat this sort of self-colonizing path towards desire to belong to the civilization. This civilization is, of course, Western civilization, and it's not really so long. It's, to be more precise, it's about the bourgeois civilization, which starts somewhere in the American and the French Revolution, which has been spread with its ideas with Napoleon Wars to the whole Europe and so on. So it's not longer than 200 years. This sort of return to these values of Western civilization, so-called, today I see as a reactive subjectivity and process of restoration, which in the project of Skopje 2014 can be seen as, on one side, absolute lack of the idea of any future, on the other side, the accumulation and concentration of different historical references, which are absolutely disparate, heterogeneous, ideologically, historically, in any sense, to fulfill this kind of gap. Today is actually absolute lack of any idea of emancipation and some sort of direction towards the future. In this sense, I'm not Yugo nostalgic. I'm trying just to detect and delimit some sort of novelties, moments of ruptures, the creations of the new. And of course, these creations are, as always, points of negativity. Every novelty, every revolutionary creation starts with the existing situation, with something which is dominant relations of ideological relations, production, and so on. So somehow I have a doubt with this title of mine. For sure, what I see as the leitmotif of Yugoslavia was this formula, this is my interpretation, that people is not equal as a state. Then I revised a little bit my title, because it's not really about creating a new state, socialist project, which is today also starting to be there are new projects of socialist state at the moment, but what is for me more important in the case of Yugoslav revolution is that it starts with a certain subjective positions, which is unprecedented, absolutely unexpected, unpredictable, and which didn't come from any sort of objective law of the history. It was absolutely unexpected as such. I will tell in what sense later. But to just to clarify why I put up this formula, I will go to something which is which precedes formally this experience, this form, and that's the rule of law. Just one moment, just to say something about. We are talking about nationless. Yugoslavia is well known, was a country which rejected the concept of the nation state. Yugoslavia was, socialist Yugoslavia I'm talking about, was rejecting any sort of politics that would be based on the common language, common culture, common history, common substance. If that was the characteristic of the kingdom of Yugoslavia, with the king of Alexander, who introduced the concept of the integral Yugoslavism based on the one language, culture, and common substance of South Slavic peoples. We knew that this process was extremely violent, that it included sort of state repressive mechanisms to destroy the differences, like Macedonian nation, language, Albanian, and all minorities actually in Yugoslavia were denied their own national characteristics in order to create one people. So this experience comes, in my mind, from this kind of the experience of the kingdom of Yugoslavia comes from this Western civilization, which was based on the rule of law. That's in fact the product of the French Revolution, of the political liberal political philosophy, and as you know, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen comes directly from Rousseau's social contract. So in this formula, the rule of law considers that citizen and the state should be equal. They should be formal, based on the formal level, on the equality of rights and duties among the whole citizens, so that there is certain reciprocity between the citizen and state, which should represent the state as such. The problem with this definition is that it lacks historical substance. As such, it is infinite. Everybody could be citizen and nobody, but we know historically that this wasn't the case. There is no world citizen. So what comes as a kind of necessary contradiction in this form of politics is substantive dimension, which is necessary to create a certain border of the state and to ex post facto retroactively create the citizens with their historical background. So we have the content of national culture, history, language, which would be constructed retroactively. So the formal reciprocity between equal rights and duties then should also reproduce or produce from the state apparatus the consensus among the citizens. and that all should function in a kind of closed system of representation. That would be, I'm just running now. In the case of Yugoslav revolutionary subjectivity, we can see two actually historical sequences where the non-identity between people and the state was introduced. First is Narodno-slobodilačka borba, which means people's liberation struggle. In the contemporary literature, you can find very often translation of the national liberation struggle, which is wrong translation. Narodno means people in the sense of the plebs, puk in Croatian, or populi, not really national. And for a good reason, because this narodno I will come to the point. Okay. This narodno actually includes very heterogeneous dimension in the peoples. Actually, it's pluralistic in itself. And then I will just say something about the post-revolutionary Yugoslav proletarian state, as I said. So in formal terms, this new subjectivity comes in two dimensions. It's a singular subject or subjectivity, which is based on this is the name of the subject. And as you see, within the name you have the term borba, which designates actually this negativity, this split within the people. It is a struggle which defines the subject in the process. And it includes military dimension and political dimensions. And they are interconnected in a way. So military dimension included partizansky odredi, pleterske brigades of military organizations, which were also at the same time political organizations, because we know that every of these brigades got their own political commissaries and so on. On the other side, we got the new forms of direct democracy and also political organizations that were fighting for specific also rights, like AFG stands for the Anti-Fascist Front of the Women, and then USAOI, Anti-Fascist Youth of Yugoslavia, then the Communist Youth, then AUTONOMY was standing as a sort of parliament of New Yugoslavia, and then also the communist parties of Yugoslavia, Slovenia, Croatia, Macedonia, and so on. But the most important is this Narodno-slobodilački odbori, which is people's liberation committees, which are absolutely singular. Nobody could predict the existence of such bodies. They were partisans as soon as they were captured some territory. They would organize the people's power in the certain villages and towns. So there were many different levels of these committees, like village, local, regional, and so on. Just in 43, to give an example, there were 2,000 such committees working at the time which was still under the fight and occupation, when practically all Europe was still under the fascist rule. On the other side, in substantial dimension, people's liberation struggle included different peoples, which included Albanians, Croats, Serbs, Slovenians, Macedonians, Muslims, and Montenegrins, and so on and so on, which meant that through the slogan of the unity and brotherhood and unity, created a new sort of unique subjectivities which would at the same time recognize different national entities within this construction. That's why I said that it's plural, and I don't know, it's plural in itself. On the other side, it included, of course, the class dimension, because it was not only the anti-fascist fight, but also anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist fight. This starts with the proclamation of Communist Party of Yugoslavia in the April of 41, when they declared that the new world will be created out of the imperialist bloodshed and war. So classes and masses, and basically the politics which was based on the workerist class historically always appeared in the forms of the masses, which include again all different parts: workers, peasants, youth, women, and honest intelligentsia.
Honest intelligence.
Honest intelligentsia are very dear to me, because basically, by definition, intelligentsia is always bound to the middle class kind of values, and they are usually also very eager to propel the imperialism, such as, I mean, they're sort of working force for the dominant classes. So honest intelligentsia is those intellectuals who are able to reflect upon their own class status and to fight with the ideas that actually represents the positions of the dominated classes. So, in sum, what we have in the comparison to the previous model, reciprocity, representation, consensus, we have now dissensus actually, because we are referring to the struggle with the splitting. It's not the creating some sort of pre-existing consensus, but through the process of divide and division and struggle with the existing, creating a new political collective. So in its nature, it's non-representative. It doesn't create any sort of apparatus that would stand for the instead of the abstract figure of the citizens who vote and so on. And then we have the uncountable multiplicity, the chain of equivalencies that are actually without end. There is no finality in this concept of the politics. So I think that this sort of subjectivity, of course, always precarious, of course, always needs new recreations of new historical circumstances. But Yugoslav experience actually shows that under the subjective conditions, many objective constraints and absolutely unfavorable situations could be combated. It is the case of, for example, break with Stalin, the ultimate emperor of the socialist realist states, and the creation of new forms of democratic decision making, let's say, in forms of the self-management, which is also reproductive. So on one side, Yugoslav proletarian states was contradictory construction. I cannot now develop that, this is very complex, but from the one side it was defined as a class state, openly declaring that it is a proletarian dictatorship, which is absolute in the sense that there is no consensus with bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie was excluded as bourgeoisie excluded aristocracy a century ago. So, on the other side, there is a contradiction, big contradiction, that the concept of the nation as such was rejected as a Yugoslav nation. You could even not declare yourself as a Yugoslav at the end of the war. But on the other side, different nations and nationalities were recognized, like for the first time in history, Macedonian nation was recognized as a nation in 42, 43. Macedonian language was first time codified in 45. A Montenegrin nation was also created. Bosnian Muslims were created. But all these creations are, in my point, actually comes from the negativity. They are coming from the experience that different state projects have penetrated certain regions like Macedonia, like Bosnia and so, which violently started to impose their state programs on the local peoples. And like it was the case with Bosnian Muslims and Macedonians, it was to combat, for example, Serbian hegemonistic project of spreading their own culture, language, and so on this. So to recognize these new nations meant actually to put some sort of limit to the existing hegemonic state programs. Yeah, I could talk more about nation, but I will just start. This is just to give some brief view on something that I want to develop.
Thank you very much. First, let's say more abstract path, we will move to exploring how art, in this case your theory, what does it do in practice when it challenges certain established mainstream categories of reproduction of nationalism. And then I'd like to ask Olson Lamay and thank him for accepting also to be part of today's event in Skopje, to share with us his experience. Until now, I think you're the first artist who has artwork in the exhibition who is also present.
First of all, I want to present myself. I'm Olson Lamay. I'm an artist from Albania. I'm studying in Italy, but I live in Tirana. And when I leave from Tirana to go in Italy, it was 2004, and it was the match about Albania and Greece. After Greece that had won the European Cup of football. So it was a big celebration in Albania. So I'll say I leave Albania with this big celebration about nationality because they have won one match with Greece. And this is the, I don't know if you can see very good, but this is the square of Tirana is very big, and all the people that came outside the houses to celebrate with flags and other things. So you see that our country, I don't know if our country is very legacy even here in Macedonia and other, even in Kosovo and Belgrade, but in general in Balkan countries. I see that we are a very small country, but we celebrate too much this. We are patriotic. I don't think too much, but it's point of view. During this experience that I was in Italy, I see that Albania had problems with visa, so we had to apply for permesso soggiorno, is a permission to stay and to study in Italy, and this permission that was given to citizens that is not in European community, they have the possibility to to study in that country, like me in Italy, but at the same time, if they don't have this paper, you cannot travel abroad. So I was invited to exhibition outside Italy, but I cannot travel because I don't have a visa. Even during this period, it was this very strange situation when I had a document. I studied in Italy, but at the same time I had problem with permission because they give you the permission with this it is not the same date. They did it after 1 year, so you have to remake it again. So you never have a documents to travel. In some kind of way, it was something political that we don't have the paper to travel around Europe. And Albania in that period, it seems very that if you give a visa to Albanian, they can go away and they can never come back. I am part of that kind of Albanian that have not they haven't go away because they are poor for problems, immigration problems, but we travel for study. So it's not a kind of immigration. And other my friends, citizens, maybe have traveled with Gomone or we have passed the border without legal documents, but this is, when I came in Italy, I see that I was recognized like everybody else. So I find myself, because I am from Tirana, I find myself in Italy in a situation when immigrant from Albania and see like mafia, like droga. So it seems like a very strange situation because I didn't consider myself in Tirana like this. And during this period that I was in Italy, I started finish the academy, and I was thinking to go in England to study and apply for a visa. And in Albania they didn't give me even a visa because they say maybe you are going there and you are not coming back. So I was very sad about the situation that I want to go outside and I cannot travel and I cannot even apply for a student's opportunity because always there is this in embassy they always think that you can go away because you are young and you cannot come back. You want to go illegal in Europe. So after this, I came back in Albania. I was invited to take part in an exhibition that speaks about independence. It's an exhibition that was made in 29 of November. That is our national celebration. And I will show you some photo. For example, this is 100 independence of Albania. You see how the Albanian flag is everywhere. And in some other way I see that we are so much patriotic about this situation, and I didn't feel comfortable. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my citizens were celebrating this independence, even on independence of Kosovo, that okay, the Kosovo is now free and other things, but I didn't feel so proud of this independence because in my way I have independence, but I cannot go anywhere. I can only stay in Albania and in Italy because I was studying. And in some other way, it seems like I cannot fly in every country that I want to go. So I was invited to make an exhibition and to celebrate this 29th of November. And there was invited artists from Kosovo and from Albania, and the same make a work. And the work that I made there, I present there, it was this. It's eagle. It seems like an eagle with two heads, but it's a chicken. So I have. It's handmade. I take it, I cut it the head, and so it's Photoshop, but at the same time it's real. It's not. I made this chicken, and when I presented to the director of National Gallery, they didn't like it, and they say, also no, we cannot present this. It's our independence of Albania, and we are celebrating Kosovo independence, so you cannot show this. The minister will come and bring other works. We have other beautiful works. So this, the director, how they try to don't have problems with. I say no, I will present this. It fits with the exhibition, and at the same time, I think this is work that needs now to be asked, because we are a country that we cannot travel, but now it's another country like Kosovo that cannot even him travel, and I see even from 2005 and now even Kosovo cannot travel anymore. So I see that haven't changed too much from the time that I made this work. I present this work and the director makes some jokes because they want to escape these problems of publicity, and they put my work in a corner and they took out the lights and they say it doesn't work, the lights, so we cannot do nothing. We try to put it in exhibition, and the strange thing is that even the media doesn't speak too much. So I think it's only afraid about the director of him that is coming the political, but it's not it's the people doesn't feel this work. And after this exhibition in 2007, I never showed this work anymore. And it happened that this work, when it was this period, when it was 100 independence of Albania, it became a symbol, because I see my work in different blogs with not my name, because it seems like very maybe illustrated, or the situation of 100 independence, that we are celebrating 100 independence, but we are the politics has problems with corruption, with poor, with poverty, maybe with war. So this in a kind of way, my work became a symbol of this period. So there was a lot of blogs when they put my photo like a symbol. My friends send me every time links. They say, "Olson, have used your photo. Olson, go and reply them. Say it's my photo. Don't use it," and other things. But I see that it's not that important to say which work, because it's not an exhibition in some kind of way, and they are even not using this for earning money or profit. So in some kind of way, I let them use it, and I feel the only thing that I haven't done is that I haven't collect all the things that they have said about my work, because some of the comment is, this eagle is made by Greece because they hate us, or it's made by Serbia because they hate us. So the Serbians say, no, it's an eagle about Serbia. So it's this situation that they didn't understand who is made this, and is a provocation or is a piece of art. But another thing that I recently, because this story that the people that stole my work is continued, and recently 2 weeks ago, one of my friends sent me a link as journal, and when they say also, look, they have used your photo, and to a name, Albania, mafia, poverty, and this kind of situation. This is an article when they say Albania, mafia, poverty, I said that mafia and poverty is without law. So it's not a miracle of Albania, because our Prime Minister is showing that Albania is a miracle. Our new government is a miracle of Albania. So they are showing that it's not a miracle, and they are writing bad things about how is the situation in Albania, the poverty and other things. And the strange thing is that they use here, you can show, they use my photo, my picture, and they didn't use even my name, nothing. And all my friends now is sending me this photo. Also, look, I have used a photo, complain to them, say to them they have to pay you for using your photo. So it's this situation that never ends. But I like how one work, in some kind of way, became their own life without author, because they recognize themselves in this photo, or the article recognize, or the people that write this. But in some kind of way, they think that this photo is perfect, but it's not the art of work. So in some way, it's more well known in blogs and virtual way than in real life, because this photo I have at my home and I haven't presented. Only one time I have presented. So in some kind of way, it's very strange how this work had this life. So this was my experience with this work. I want to share with you, because it's a short story, but it tells a lot about how sometimes some works can represent the situation, a political situation, and without a people that were made this, because in some way not all people know that I made this work.
Thank you.
For sure there will be light on the tonight. It will be light for sure. So as the last but not least presenter tonight, I have the pleasure to invite Angeliki Avgitidou
Yes.
to also present part of her work with some explanation, and then we can have, I think, a sort of round of maybe comments, talks within the audience. It doesn't have to be answers and questions and answers, because I don't think that somebody here claims the position or the status to give to know the answers. So I think that when maybe we can open the floor then for comments. But now the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So I'm a Greek artist, but I also work in the academia, teaching art and theory at the School of Fine Arts. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for providing the context for that. And just gonna show you a couple of things, and also provide the context for the work that you're gonna see downstairs, because I mean, art is part of culture as well, and sometimes it's difficult to understand things without knowing the history the history in general. So some of the works that I'm going to be showing today, they're not in the exhibition, but maybe it's a way of opening up a discussion about art in general and what it can do for the world. Which is always a question we have to answer as artists. So can you pass this around? There are a few of these around. So this is called Manifestos for Artists in Crisis, and they're my gift to you, not from me, but from other people as well. So this was produced 3 years ago, I think. And we did this in Thessaloniki, and it's a list of directions for artists who are in a crisis, but basically for everyone who's in a crisis. So you're going to be needing this in the future. I can guarantee this to you. So I'm just going to write randomly some of these. So they're in Greek, but they're also in English. With very small letters. So let's see. Number 39. Don't hit policemen. Number 76. Never work in media that are smarter than you are. Number 112. Sensibility is the basis of all morality. Number 157. Look hard. Number 105, structure is meaning. And number 6, things are important because you notice them. So you can pick some of these and respond to whatever difficulties you have in life. So this is my gift to you. And these were produced by a call to artists to send me their rules that they use in order to produce their work. So these are from a lot of people. So some are contradictory as well, because they're from a lot of people. And I guess this is part of life in general, contradictions. So maybe this is part of this discussion as well. So another gift to you, because this is what my mom told me, just always bring gifts when you go somewhere, is these booklets. So I have a few for you. It's called, it's also in Greek and English, Archive of Future Performances. So this was produced last year, and it was given freely at an exhibition. And again, I called to people to send me a design for a performance that they would freely give to anybody who would want to perform it. And as performance artists and artists in general, we're very often asked to do work and to perform freely. I mean, this has to say a lot about capitalist world in general. And I guess performance started like that. It started as part of a system of art that wanted to go outside the system of art. So as part of conceptual art, it started as artists that wanted to go outside of the economy of the object, which was something that somebody could buy and own. So really this is how it started in the 70s. But I guess things have changed a lot since then, and artists will have to survive somehow. So it's something I usually talk about, how performance art is not considered as work, but art in general is not considered as work. So we're asked to give art and to produce art and not receive any money for that. So there's a saying that I say, something like, and one free performance. It's like it can go in the end of anything, you know. But so we decided to do this ourselves. You know, we're just giving away performances. You can have them and you can produce them if you want. So I'm just gonna read one of them. Again, it's from different people, so there are different modes of writing as well. So two people are standing on each side of a partition so that the viewers have a clear view of both. One is facing the wall, opening his or her mouth as if he's shouting vowels and syllables. On the other side of the partition, the other person has placed a stethoscope on the wall and loudly pronounces vowels and syllables. So it's like creating a picture and deciding, you know, how you're going to perform this. Some are really abstract and some are more concrete. So you can decide how to use this. And just as a last thing I'm going to show you, this is one of the works that I'm showing downstairs. So I would like to provide you a little bit of a context for that one. It was part of, I don't think we need this one, so this is one of our performances that were a series. And the series was called Back to Basics. This was the third of the series. And a lot more were designed, but they weren't realized. So I think 4 of them were realized. So this is made in Nicosia in Cyprus, and it's a walk that I do from the fortification of the old city, outside of the fortification, and I walk towards the Green Line, which is the border between the Greek Tsibiridou and the Turkish Tsibiridou. And what I'm doing is I'm placing photos. These photographs are photographs from my family photographs from with the original frames. Because we used to take a lot of photographs, and we just had massive amounts of photographs that we would recycle in the house. And all of them are from parties that we made, because we were a very festive family. So we're dancing or we're eating together and so on. And I'm just placing them along the line as I go. I'm using the sorting trolley to move them. At each time I count from 1 to 42, which was my age at the time. It's like a 1 minute silence. I'm going to count that. don't so work performances in video, but this actually works well as a video, so I'm feeling quite comfortable to solve this as a video as well. So you will see as I move along, the city changes as well. So I'm working towards the green line. The sites become more derelict and abandoned in the end.
Is there like a real border in the green line, like a wall, checkpoint?
The green line.
Huh?
There is a checkpoint.
Yes.
The green line.
Well, yeah, I mean there's a row of, it's not a fortification, but there are some barrels, some points. There's a row of warehouses that are not being used anymore. And there is a checkpoint at one point. So as I move along, I also change the pace that I'm doing the counting and my voice as well. Sometimes it's more soft and sometimes it's playful and very quick. So this is quite close to the green line now. So this part is the border. So this is very, very soft voice. You cannot even hear it, even though the camera is very close to me. It's funny because people leave photographs all the time, and we found this out because my brother-in-law went the next day, and they had picked some of the photos, and the soldiers asked him, "Oh, what rank was he?" My father, because they thought it was somebody who died, you know, in the war, yeah. So this is the last spot. It's an abandoned guardhouse. And here I'm counting backwards from 42 to 1. And this is a picture of my parents. So there were like 5 or 6 people that knew me, that were coming along with me, but no, there was no announcement or so on. So it was just these few people present. So just want to say a couple of things about how this might be useful for future reflection. One is that this work and the other performances that I did in this series were a means of creating some kind of everydayness within art that was different from the everydayness that I had, but also to connect with the world somehow. And this particular work, I think it was a way of connecting a personal history with a more collective history, which was a history of separation. That is a very real separation for the people's lives in the city of Nicosia. But also a history of loss. And this feeling of the impossibility of going back. You can never go back, either in time or in space, because things can never be the same. And the personal history behind this is that these performances were done very quickly after the death of my mother. And everybody who has lost somebody understands the new meaning of the time takes for you when you lose somebody. So I felt this urgency to do these ideas really quickly and somehow to make these performances and to make art my way of living more than it was before. Yes, and there's something else, because performance is very fleeting and it's a very ephemeral thing, and very few people are there when you're doing it. And because I talk about other people's performances as well, because I'm very interested in performance, also as a viewer, it is important for me to understand how these help anybody understand more about his or her life and about the world in general. So I think, in a way, these performances that are done in public spaces are a way to understand more your life among other people. Because public space used to be a reflection of the public sphere somehow, but this is long gone because the public sphere has moved to the media, and so it's a way of, I guess, to persist in a life with others in the public space, something that somehow we have lost, and it's not a nostalgia as the other nostalgia that you said. It's somehow a persistence to be among others and to live these contradictions that we have. So that's all I'm going to say. So thank you very much.